Yeah.
You don't have to, but I like to see you all.
Yeah.
Don't be polite. Move around.
Yeah, please.
You can move. Nice and steady, buddy. So move around. Move around. Shoulders on your way. Move right around. There's space up here. Look, bring your chairs up here if you wish.
Lovely. Wonderful. So on behalf of Kurukulla Center, welcome Venerable. It's so amazing to have Venerable Kiras here again. Such an incredible teacher. Venerable was ordained in the 1970s. She's done magnificent things. One of the big things is starting the Liberation Prison Project, which does excellent work still for the prisoners. I know from personal experience that the support they feel they get is just marvelous. So that's one incredible thing. And then Venerable had been also editor of Mandala Magazine, managing wisdom publications, and then have been teaching around the world for many, many years. We've been fortunate to host, I know Venerable here at least many times, 4 times that I've been here, and then before that. And always welcome, and we are very proud to provide one of the best rooms, so I'm very happy that Venerable loves it here. So please enjoy. But please live long and teach, and don't. That's a new one. Oh, I haven't switched that on yet. I'll switch it on. Okay. Thanks everyone.
Who? Free your mind. And develop your potential. Well, that's Buddha's deal, isn't it? That's the one. Okay. I almost can see you all sort of half a little bit. Okay. We can make the pillar transparent, I suppose. It's late now. Okay, so I want to sing a little prayer to start, so I can put it on the right track. It's got 2 parts. The first 2 lines are for anybody in the room who already identifies with being a Buddhist, so it's reminding us of our reliance on the Buddha and his teachings. And the second 2 lines can be for all of us, maybe, expressing, we'd say, by stating our purpose for being here. The Tibetans would say, setting our motivation. So we're thinking we're going to listen to these ideas coming from the Buddha, and to listen to it as advice. Doesn't mean you have to take it. You're the boss. I always like to say it that way. You are the boss, not Buddha. It's advice, but hearing it as advice. Advice for what? Well, really simple, you know. The word Buddha in Tibetan, Sangye, the etymology is very tasty. Sang implies the utter eradication from our mind of all ridiculous nonsense, all the ego, all rubbish, all fears, all anger, all the stuff that we think is utterly normal, but which Buddha has found from his own experience we can get rid of, which is kind of a shocking concept, really, pretty radical. So the first reason to listen is to find tools to help us do that, rid the mind of all the causes of suffering, all the nonsense in the mind. And second, to develop all the marvelous qualities, all the goodness. So essentially, get rid of the rubbish and grow all the goodness. Sangye. That's the end result. That's the bottom line. Heading towards that. So anything towards this is the reason to use Buddha's teachings. That's it, really. It's pretty simple. The concept is simple. Don't hold your breath. It'll take a while. So that's the reason to listen, for tools to help us do that. Become less neurotic, less depressed, less angry, less jealous, more wise, more kind, more compassionate. That's the bottom line. Sangye charam soke chognam la jamsho badu dagni kyab suchi dagi chunyen gipes sonam ki drola penche sangye drobha shog sangye charam soke chognam la jamsho badu dagni kyab suchi dagi chunyen gipes sonam ki drola penche sangye drobha shog Sangye charang soke chognam la Jangcho badu dagni kyab suchi Dagi chunyen gipe sonam ki Drola penche sangye drompa shog. Before the teachings, where you say in the third line normally jin sog, which means kind of the merit of practicing generosity and the other perfections, we say instead chunyen the merit of listening to the teachings. Apparently I'm supposed to say from giving the teachings, but I figure I'm listening as well, so I also say from listening to the teachings. All right. So if that's what Buddha says is where we're heading, that the end result of the work of being a Buddhist, if you're a Mahayana Buddhist, is to end up becoming a Sangye. Sang, rid of all the rubbish, Gye, full of all the goodness. So it sounds kind of cute and simple, sounds like a nice idea, but if you analyze it psychologically, and hear it psychologically and hear it properly, it's kind of, as I said, it's kind of shocking, it's radical. I don't think there's any concept remotely like that in modern psychology. There's not, very simple. And that one of the fundamental reasons is because the mind is the brain as far as the modern psychological view is concerned. And we tried cutting bits out in the 1930s, we called them lobotomies, and it didn't work. So I don't think there's any view that says you can get rid utterly of ego, anger, fears, depression, jealousy, anxiety, develop to at the nth degree wisdom, compassion, clarity, etc., etc. But this is the Buddha's deal. So hearing it this way, the end result, tells us then one of the crucial things about Buddha's view about the mind, that there is this absolute distinction in terms of the contents of the mind between the stuff that we utterly take for granted, that we utterly know, are so familiar with, anger, attachment, anxiety, jealousy, depression, these simple, simple words. Forget all the complicated words we use in modern psychology, you know? Just these simple states of mind, we're utterly familiar with them. And we consider them so normal that I think we'd consider you'd be abnormal if you didn't have them. And we truly take this for granted. There's no technique in our modern psychological, approach that suggests, that even talks this way. Well, the hero practices to help you get less anxious, less neurotic. Not just less, this is the point the Buddha's making, completely free of it. So it seems a pretty abstract concept because we do take this stuff so much for granted. So what's Buddha's approach? What's he meaning here, Well, first of all, it's not wrong to say that the mind is Buddha's expertise. And that could be a surprise to us as well because we're so used to thinking of it as spiritual. Come on in. Who's that? Yeah, please. Come on in. We're so used to thinking the word spiritual. We know we've got psychology, and then we seem to think we've got spiritual, which is actually, we think that's a separate component. And indeed, there are some aspects of it. I mean, if you look around this room, I was a Catholic. This leaves the Catholics for dead, Look at it. There's not an inch of wall that's not covered with holy pictures. So we tend to think this is the spiritual part. So, whereas for the Buddha, interestingly, this is really not the main thing. This is implying a whole approach in Buddhism, but it's not the essential practice. The essential practice of being a Buddhist, the bottom line of being a Buddhist, the actual job of being a Buddhist is to work on your mind. That's absolutely a fact, So all the techniques that you might use, coming from that this stuff implies, as you so wish, are techniques that help you do the actual job, as Lama Yeshe puts it, of being your own therapist. Well, it sounds kind of cute, but it is literally true. If especially the job is to become a Sangye, rid of the rubbish, full of the goodness. So all the techniques in Buddhism are to help us do that. So it's not wrong then to say that the mind is Buddha's expertise. He doesn't use a term like soul. He doesn't refer to a thing called a spirit or a soul. That's absolutely not what he talks about. He talks about the mind. So if he says then the mind has this potential, he's saying himself, he's not a creator. He didn't make this up. He didn't have a vision of it. It's not revelation. Actually, I find that we all ask the same questions on this planet, We all ask exactly the same questions all over the world, I tell you. But there's only one question one person's ever asked me. And it was a scientist in New Zealand. And he said, who revealed the teachings to the Buddha? Which is a totally appropriate question in normal religious terms, which is religions being the major ones we know, which imply a creator. And this is our default assumption, isn't it, about religion? That somehow it's from on high, it's revelation, it's from a creator, therefore can't be proved. This is the usual assumption, I think. It's quite deep in our minds that. Well, surprisingly maybe, unless we're Buddhists and know this, but still we don't tend to join the dots. Buddha's not a creator. He doesn't assert a creator. So so who revealed the teachings to the Buddha? Well, as I said to this man, nobody did. I said he's like Einstein. Insofar as everything Einstein presents, we know is not revelation, is not coming from on high, is not from a dream or a vision, hopefully is not speculation, is coming from Einstein's experience. And that's a surprise to us to hear it so bluntly, but that's exactly the Buddha. Okay, there's different, the more advanced teachings, there are different levels at which one these teachings can be revealed, spoken, presented. But essentially, all Buddhist teachings are coming from the experience of a person called a Buddha. Like all science presented by Einstein is necessarily coming from him, you know, and if it isn't, he'd quote his sources. But it's from his own experience. And all he's doing is, like Einstein, saying, here's my methodology, over to you, for you to come to the same things, to experience the same things. So in that sense, literally, you'd say, if I distinguish between my Catholic upbringing and the Buddhist view, literally Buddhism is not a belief system. Literally. You can use it loosely speaking. The Dalai Lama, when he talks to us, he talks about the Buddhist beliefs, you know, because it's the word we use. But technically, it's experience. It comes down to having the experience of that. And as the Dalai Lama points out to us Westerners, if you move along using Buddha's methodology, checking the boxes as you go, which is the way you practice anything, isn't it? You don't suddenly study acupuncture and then overnight become an acupuncturist. You go gradually. All bodies of knowledge are the same, well, including here, this. But if you move along, checking the boxes, experiencing things as you go, verifying as you go, but you get to a certain point where you discover Buddha actually is wrong, then you must reject him. Of course you would. This is the Buddhist approach. So, if he talks about the mind and says the mind has this extraordinary potential to be utterly free of all ego and all the voices of ego, like attachment and anger and fears and all the nonsense, and to be completely perfected in the goodness, then we better understand what he means by the mind. Because this is the job from day one of being a Buddhist. Everything you do, everything you choose to take on board as a Buddhist has to get you to that, obviously. If you want to discover E equals MC squared, everything you think about on the way has to lead you to that. You can't kind of diverge into other roads and get lost. It's pretty evident. If you want to become Bach, like Bach, everything you do will lead you to this. It seems reasonable, you know. Same here. So, then Buddha, to become a Buddha, as I say in Buddhism, every sentient being, every person, every sentient being, every mind possessor, actually, the Tibetan word for what we say in English sentient being is mind possessor. It's very interesting. Every mind possessor just naturally possesses what they call Buddha nature, the potential to become a Sangye, Buddha, free of all the goodness, free of all the rubbish, full of all the goodness. So then we need to be clear about what the mind is then. Because in so many ways Buddha is so radically different in his view of what the mind is, his experience of what the mind is, and indeed absolutely evident in terms of the potential of every mind. We better be clear what he's saying. We can't kind of use our Jung's view of the mind and plonk it into Buddhism. It's a very different model, different assumptions, different concepts, so many different understandings, you know. So for the Buddha then, the mind is this word that's used virtually synonymously with the word consciousness, for a start. First point, fundamental point, and this immediately kind of confuses us, because this is not how we use the word mind. It isn't physical. It's not your brain. It's not a function of your brain. And it's not trying to insult materialist findings or the neuroscientific views. Because Buddha would talk about, certainly in the Vajrayana model of the mind, we've got gross consciousness, which is the level we function at day to day, when the brain indeed is functioning. But then there are subtle levels of mind that Buddha would assert that we absolutely do not assert in our culture. And this is where it then begins to seem like, oh, well, that's just religion. How can you prove that? Well, you know, Buddhism comes from these extraordinary beings. More than 3,000 years ago, I remember the Dalai Lama said, I always quote this lately. It really kind of triggered something for me. You know, we all know that Buddha was Indian. We know he comes from India. But what do we know about Indian philosophy and psychology and metaphysics and nothing? Zero. We love the Greeks, don't we? You know, half our fancy words are in Greek. What do we know about India? Literally nothing, and most Buddhists know nothing. Modern Western Buddhists. But it was His Holiness who said, just sort of casually one time, it was these amazing Indians more than 3,000 years ago who were the ones who began the investigation into the nature of self. That was their thing. And Buddha came along, was educated in that remarkable system of these astonishing beings, highly evolved thinkers, ethicists, spiritual practitioners, philosophers, psychologists, not kidding. You know, the Indian system is vast and extraordinary. Buddha came out of that tradition and then diverged. He went as far as he could go and then diverged in his own direction, in relation in particular to the nature of self, his own findings about the self, which is where all the Buddha's wisdom teachings come to, understanding the nature of self. Who are we? Finally, what's the point, you know? So they're the ones, these Indians, these amazing beings, they're the ones who created this skill, this amazing, sophisticated psychological skill that's known as single-pointed concentration meditation. These days, a sort of a variation of that is taught in the world, and it's known as mindfulness meditation. These amazing Indians, they developed such a level of discipline and clarity, and you'd say good ethics, because without morality and ethics and discipline, there's no way you could do what they did. They plumbed the depths of their own mind, literally developing this really refined level that we don't posit as existing in modern psychology at all, such that your grosser level of consciousness has completely ceased. That's why we think it's religion. That's why we think it's mystical. If you were to see a person who'd accomplished this shamatha, calm abiding, single point of concentration, this is, as I'm saying, came before the Buddha, they would look like they were dead. So the crucial point the Buddha is making is that consciousness has these much subtler levels, and in the long term, to do this job of achieving sangye, we absolutely have to access that level. Absolutely, there's no question. So that's something that is unique, utterly unique to these amazing Indians, you know, and then indeed in these days, unique to the Buddha. Nothing remotely like it in our culture. These subtle levels of consciousness go beyond the sensory, beyond the gross conceptual, and this we're able to plumb the depths of the mind and access these much more subtle, more powerful, more potent, more capable, more brilliant levels of consciousness. And it's not just some hippie-trippy thing you do. In order to do the job the Buddha says we need to do to achieve sangye, we have to have this level of consciousness that is super capable, and such that we can use it in the second mode of meditation that's known as insight meditation, or known in the world as vipassana, to do the job of unpacking and unraveling all the chaos in the mind, ridding the mind of the rubbish and developing the goodness. So it's these Indians, I mean, extraordinary, you know, amazing beings. And what they did was, among other things, in their pursuit of understanding the nature of self, they mapped the mind. There's something very fascinating. Well, if we think of mapping the mind, we think of neuroscientists, you know, using a microscope to map the mind. Well, these amazing beings, and indeed Buddhists, map the mind internally. Again, that's utterly unknown to us. It seems cosmic almost. There's no view like that. We don't trust the subjective at all in our culture, in our science. But that's their skill. And there are people, over the centuries, millions of people have achieved this single-pointedness. And people right in this second now are achieving it. It's a completely extant living method, you know. Mindfulness there are 47 variations of it. There is people's own interpretation of it, and that's okay. Buddha doesn't own the word mindfulness, based on this technique. So, okay, Buddha's view about the mind then, first and foremost, it's not physical. It's not a function of the brain, and that doesn't mean the brain doesn't play a role. Physical and mental are inextricably linked, intimately, interdependently linked. But they're not the same phenomena. That's a fundamental point for the Buddha. In fact, if Buddha's view, his own experience about mind not being physical, is in fact incorrect, then the whole of Buddhism as a world view, which it is, would fall into a heap of utter absurdity. It's all a load of nonsense. There's no basis. So that's why, for a starting point, to look into the Buddhist view of the mind in more depth, we have to take it as a hypothesis, you know. in the beginning. We can't prove it in the beginning, not possible. Only when you've got a more subtle level yourself from meditation, and that's advanced. Most of us probably in this life won't go up to the mountains and give up sex, drugs and rock and roll, which is the intensity of time and commitment that you need to get to these subtle levels of mind. So it's our hypothesis for here, that your consciousness is not physical. Got these far more subtle levels. Second, as we're already indicating, the final result is the potential of the mind to be perfected. That's an utterly unusual idea. The other thing that's radically different from, in Buddha's view about the mind is its source. Where do I come from? Who made me? We have an assumption, isn't it? And I think if we think of the Christian teachings, the Muslim teachings, the Jewish teachings, the major creator religions, the assumption is that a creator created us, which means that virtually we began in our mother's womb. Well, the materialist model, the materialist philosophical model, says exactly the same thing. You began in your mother's womb, and your mummy and daddy created you, isn't it? Well, Buddha's view is completely different. But in fact, Buddha, you'd say the more you work with the Buddhist ideas, the more you take on board the Buddha's view of the Buddha's philosophical view, Buddha's view of karma, and the whole deal, the more bizarre an idea it is that someone can give you a mind, give you love, give you compassion. Because the word mind in Buddhism doesn't just refer to this thing up here, the contents of our brain, as we would think. The word mind refers to thoughts, intellect, feelings, emotions, unconscious, subconscious. These subtle levels of our being, even what you could call loosely, you could say soul. I mean, Buddha's got a very different view philosophically, as I'm saying. The whole spectrum of our inner being, this is the mind for the Buddha. It is necessarily not physical. It is absolutely not the handiwork of anybody else. This is the weirdest idea. The more you take on board Buddha's views, it's a weird idea. Not a possibility for the Buddha. Not a possibility. Impossible that someone can give you love, give you anger. Give you a brain, yes, but your brain's not your mind. The way I'd put it, using the Buddha's view roughly, is the brain is like an indicator of what is going on in your mind, but only at a gross level. Because once, like I said before, once you've accessed these subtle levels of your mind in meditation, concentration meditation, you'd look like you were dead. Your brain is not working. You've gone to these subtler levels, which for sure don't depend upon the brain. So the view of mind is so different in Buddhism. This is the big picture point of view. I mean, there's many tools in Buddhism you can use without even bothering with all these ideas. We all know very well, we know very well we can learn to concentrate a bit better. We know we can listen to our own thoughts and hear the anger and decide to change. These things we know. And frankly, it doesn't matter whether we think our brain is in our skull or our toenail. It doesn't matter. We know we can do that. But a person who's interested in the bigger picture, and I certainly like the bigger picture in Buddhist view, then we take on board these different ideas of the mind. And this all fits in the bigger picture for Buddhism, So clearly indicated by the idea, Buddha's view that we can achieve the perfection of all the goodness and rid of all the rubbish, the obvious thing he's saying is we can change our mind. That's the evidence. That's what implied, isn't it? We can change our mind. So what does that mean? Why would you want to? Well, given this end result, Sangye, it's obvious that we have to learn to distinguish between all the neurotic parts of our mind and all the valid, useful, productive, beneficial, kind, compassion, wisdom, generosity. We know these intuitively. As soon as we hear the word anger, hate, fear, anxiety, we know they're the horrible things. We know it. And as soon as we hear love, compassion, kindness, instantly we know that's the nice stuff. It's just something utterly acceptable, Except the big difference is in our culture, we give them equal status and assume they're all a normal part of a normal person. In fact, so normal, as I said before, that the idea that you can get rid of all anger, all attachment, all fears sounds utterly abnormal, like you'd be mentally ill. But this is, as I'm saying, this is Buddha's point. And therefore all the practices in Buddhism are to help us do this job. This is the bottom line. So it seems the concept is pretty easy. And it's a surprise too, because if you're studying Tibetan Buddhism, you're going to be shocked at the depth and breadth of all the teachings and the philosophy, It's vast, extensive. But the bottom line is finally, rid of the rubbish, full of the goodness. That's what Buddha himself, this person, has found directly from his own experience. And then indeed anybody who's practiced over the centuries, you know. So why would we want to change our mind? Why would we want to become even less, forget about getting rid of it all, less angry, less attached, less depressed? I mean, it's kind of obvious, isn't it? I mean, we know those words, they refer to the painful parts. So what is it, what makes it so difficult for us to do this? Well, I think one of the main first reasons, you know, why are you angry, Robina? Well, that's, who's my boyfriend? You have to be my boyfriend. What's your name? Jason. Oh, that's Jason's fault, isn't it? No, really, very literally and quite clearly, and even all of our psychological models would say that. I mean, if Jason cheats on me every day and is mean and unkind, no one is surprised, no one is shocked when I'm crying and suffering. What's wrong, Robina? And I say what Jason does. No one says, well, that's no reason to be miserable, Robina. What are you talking about? Because you'll assume it is the reason. Absolutely the reason. The main reason, in fact. It's clear, and all our models of the mind describe it this way. The second we read about anybody in the papers who's the latest poor, unfortunate child mass murderer, the first thing we all do is look into his past. What happened? What made him this way? What happened in his life? What did mummy do, daddy do? Look at his chemicals, his genes, his DNA. It's immediate, absolutely goes without saying. The cause of what he is back there somewhere. And then indeed, if I go to my therapist, naturally, I'm going to go back into the past looking for a needle in a haystack. What caused Robina to always keep choosing dumb Jason boyfriends, you know? Not to mention why he did what he did, but what it is about me, why I get so jealous, why do I get so angry, why do I choose such crummy boyfriends? It's absolutely default mode for us. We never, ever, ever question that. And that's a shocking concept to even think you could question it. But that's our model, that's our world. And indeed, why are you happy, Robina? Oh, Jason's the kindest man you've ever met. So good to me, so kind, so loving. No one says, well, that's no reason to be happy. I mean, you think you're nuts saying that. It goes without saying, of course it's the reason I'm happy. It goes without saying, default mode. It's obvious to us. This is so implicit in our minds, it's a shock to even question it. Well, Buddha is. He says we've got it only partially right. So this is one of the first main reasons we don't even think of looking into our mind, not to mention change it. Why should I? If someone comes along, if I go to a therapist who's, you know, a bit of a fanatic Buddhist and starts dumping Buddhism down my throat, well, you know, Robina, Buddha says it's your responsibility. You know, Robina, it's up to you, and you know that your anger is the main cause of your suffering. Buddha does say that. I believe immediately. You're out of your brain. What do you mean I'm allowed to be angry? I'm allowed to be angry, we say. This is our view, deep in our bones, which we don't question. And this is probably the main reason, starting reason. Lama Zopa Rinpoche said, this sounds pretty shocking, that the vast majority of all humans on the planet have absolutely no idea that what goes on in their mind, and the Tibetan's point here, you know, that what goes on in their mind plays any role at all in their lives. Well, this sounds demented. Because it's all Jason, isn't it? It's all the food and the weather and the thing and the events and the things out there. As far as we're concerned, life, by definition, is out there, isn't it? We feel like we're some kind of recipient of it. Someone made us, mummy, daddy, or God, one or the other. We began in our mummy's womb. No one asked us. I didn't ask to get born, did I? I mean, this is literally true. We say it like a joke. But it's literally true. My mother did not, did not request permission to make me. She didn't consult me in it. I'm this product of these two wacky parents, you know. I know it sounds silly saying it this way, but it's literally how we think. So these two people decide to make another version of themselves. And then I turn out the way I am, and they throw me out, and then they tell me to go and take care of my own life. They made me. It's like the Frankenstein and his monster. He makes the monster, then they go and blame the monster. That's a bit mean, isn't it? It's like Mr. Toyota makes a lousy car, then you blame the car. You send the car to the court. I mean, this is like what it is. It's a wacky idea. Buddhism doesn't say it like this, he's polite. But as the implication, Buddha thinks is the weirdest idea. We'll go into his view in a minute more. But this is the major stumbling block, I'd say, because, and this is the whole Buddhist view about the way the mind works and why we suffer. Because we are, one of the consequences of, anyway, one of the reasons we suffer for the Buddha is this reason, that we are addicted to believing and reinforcing, and our materialist philosophical models do reinforce it very sincerely, that we are the handiwork of someone else. And that external events are the main cause of my happiness and my suffering, which is why we spend our lives looking for out there, isn't it? To adjust out there, to get it just so that I'm happy and not suffering. This is what Buddha means by being in samsara. Well, this is the first thing we have to start questioning, he says. He's not saying events don't play a role. He's not saying the brain doesn't play a role. He's not saying parents don't play a role. He's not saying that. All he says is we're missing the main thing, which is the mind, my own mind. So where does my mind come from then? If it's not God and not mummy and not daddy, and it's not nothing can come from nothing. We just know that intuitively. Everything is cause and effect. So if everything you point to at this second that exists, we know there's a series of causes that came before it. Well, the same with our mind. So if God and mummy and daddy are not the causes, the main causes of this person in the womb developing into Robina, who is? What is? Well, for the Buddha, it's not complicated. This consciousness of Robina's, which is not physical, came into this womb, came into this fallopian tube of my mummy when my daddy and mummy hopped into bed, entered into that egg and sperm, fully programmed with her own tendencies. That this consciousness did not begin out of nowhere. It is not the function, it's not the handiwork of a creator, it's not the handiwork of mummy and daddy. They provide the sperm and the egg. They provide they provide the body, no question. But what makes it turn into this person is the entry of consciousness from before. So think of the mind for the Buddha is this continuity of mental moments, basically. I mean, it's not difficult to hypothesize that. We just don't agree with it, that's all initially. That's the Buddha's view. This consciousness of Robina's, of yours, of Jason's, is this, in fact, beginningless continuity of mental moments that goes back and back and back. And not more than a few weeks before conception in my mummy's fallopian tube, or wherever it was, this continuity, this consciousness, was in another body, not more than a few weeks before. And this it's a very fascinating process, you know, that causes the various conditions to come together, the seeds to ripen. This is that would then cause that consciousness to be programmed to go on autopilot when it leaves the past body to enter into my mother's fallopian tube. So some random event. This is implying this other fundamentally crucial component of Buddha's worldview, which is the view of karma. Karma is this law. We'll go into both of these. Now and in the week we'll go to both. These are the essential, these are the main components. The understanding of the mind and then how, this law of karma. This is the fundamentals, the nuts and bolts of Buddha's philosophy, the nuts and bolts of Buddha's view of the universe. These things occur. He's observed this. He's not a creator. He didn't make these up. He doesn't have a copyright on these things. They're natural law. There's no equivalent in Buddhism of God's law. It's natural law, he says. Like scientists say, it's natural law. That's a surprise to us as well, because we assume religion is somebody else's law, you know, they impose. Not the Buddha, he doesn't say that. So this consciousness of ours does not begin in the mother's womb. It comes into the egg and sperm programmed, not with their tendencies. Buddha looks at, you know, we look into the past. Well, so does Buddha. But not mummy's and daddy's past and the monkey's past, back to the monkeys, isn't it? Not like that. Buddha says we go into our own past of this consciousness, this river of mental moments, this unbroken chain of mental moments, this consciousness, this mind stream, as they call it. So the main cause of what's in Robina's mind is what was put into this mind before. So the main cause of the anger and jealousy that arise in my mind when Jason cheats on me is that anger and that jealousy in that mind. So the main cause of your being good at piano is not the piano, is not Steinway, is not Bach's music, is not your mother, is not your music teacher. They're the catalysts. The main cause of why you can play piano today, the main cause of why you're angry today, because it's a habit in your mind that you've practiced. I mean, this is not complicated for us. We know that. Why are you good at piano, Jason? Oh, well, that's Bach's fault. No, you don't say that. You're honoured to own responsibility for your hard work. Well, why are you good at cheating, Jason? Well, that's, it's not my fault. That's because my mummy cheated on me or something. And so the same reason that you're good at piano, because you've practiced it, is the same reason you're jealous, because you've practiced it. But we make this big distinction, don't we, in our culture? We think it's different. But it's the same. They're just a bunch of tendencies in your mind that, when they meet the certain external conditions, can then flourish. So jealousy, love, compassion, kindness, anger flourish. They're habits, they're tendencies in my mind that I came fully programmed with. And then when I meet the conditions called Jason, then the jealousy is activated. So he's a catalyst. Like Bach is a catalyst for me to play piano. So is the Steinway piano. So is my music teacher. I'm the main cause. My tendency to be good at music is the main cause. Well, my tendency to be good at love and compassion and kindness and jealousy, they are the main cause of why I'm those things. As a concept, it's not complicated. Just it sort of seems a surprise to us. So the first thing then, this is the hardest, just to change this view that we have so deeply and that feels so instinctive. No one taught us this. When I was a little child, my mother didn't have to teach me to be angry with my sister when she was mean to me, because I believed she was the cause. This is deep in our bones. This is one of the functions of ego, Buddha says. To have this schizophrenic view of it's all out there, Everything's coming from out there. I'm this innocent victim. It's like life is good luck and bad luck. That's how we think. That's how we believe. I didn't ask to get born. It's not my fault. We're walking through life fearful of the horrible things and greedily hoping for the good things, but never having any sense that it has anything to do with me. We believe this naturally. We act like this. We feel like this. Buddha's view is very different. So it takes time to familiarize ourselves with this. Because unless I'm prepared to look inside and own that it is my anger, which is so painful, and we hear it though as blame. Why should I change? It's not my fault. This is completely instinctive within us. So initially it's painful because it feels like I'm being the blame, Well, it's not like that, not for the Buddha. We have to learn to become familiar with our own tendencies. We have to learn to become intimately familiar with the contents of our own mind. It's not a moralistic issue for the Buddha, it's a practical one. It's not moralistic. Like, it's not fair, why should I? It's not my fault. Even if you don't think about the whole concept of mind coming from before, like I said, even if you don't think about whether your mind's in your brain or your toenail, honestly, or whether you're created by God or nobody, I don't care. Even if you don't think about that, I think there's a practical. This is so practical. We can all buy into it, but you have to be brave. So basically, essentially, what he's saying is, check the last. Do a bit of research, internal research. How do you feel when you're depressed? How do you feel when you're anxious? How do you feel when you're jealous? And how do you feel when you're loving? How do you feel when you can stop? When you can be kind, forgiving. It's absolutely a no-brainer. I don't think anybody on the planet would prefer to be jealous. Oh, I was jealous yesterday. Oh, it was just great. It's not possible. But it's really hard for us even to recognize that, because we think it's not my fault. It really is the product of Jason's behavior, and therefore I'm allowed to be jealous. I'm allowed to be angry. And then to even contemplate the idea and even to listen to the Buddha's suggestion that I could learn to be less jealous, then the first thing that arises is, you mean he gets away with it? So it's so caught up in our mind, it's so complex, all the assumptions we have. So much anger, so much resentment, so much bitterness, so much vindictiveness even. It's quite heavy to think about it. So, but I think it's really clear, if we be brave enough to recognize which state of mind feels better, what makes me feel better. But it would seem to be evident, and yet still it's really hard to get to that. This is why I love to tell extreme stories about my friends in prison. And this particular story I always tell, I don't know this woman, but I read her memoir, and there's been movies and things about this woman, I think. In the 70s, she was this hippie woman with a hippie husband, hippie kids, hitching in Florida. I can't remember the details. But they were hitching, and they got a lift, and the guys were stopped by the cops, and the guys killed the cops and blamed the hippies. So they're on death row. Husband even gets executed. I mean, you just try and think of that for a second, you know. Think of when you're just accused of saying a word you didn't say. Look at the torment. Well, they're accused of murder, okay, and he's executed. She gets out after 17 years. She's innocent, you know. They're both innocent. You can't even conceive of the torture, the nightmare. And from the number of people I know in prison, and look at the number of people who are wrongly accused, it's like such common now, you know, to hear. People on 25 years on death row, innocent, and finally get out. You can't imagine the nightmare, the torture, the suffering. So she said at some point, I realized I couldn't change anything, but they couldn't take my mind from me. So I decided, I'm not a prisoner, I'm a monk. I'm not in a cell, I'm in a cave. I mean, if you think of that, try and imagine that. That is an absolutely perfect example of what Buddha's saying. So I don't think she was a Buddhist. I think she did yoga and things. But it seems to me she had this astonishingly intelligent mind and courageous to be able to realize, in other words, to be able to realize that she would be the beneficiary. This is the point. She was the beneficiary. She saw no reason to go mad. She saw it was not beneficial for her to go out of her brain. I remember reading about another guy at the same time, also innocent on death row, who did in fact go out of his brain with rage and despair. And that is what we consider normal. Because when we so believe that what happens to us is the main cause of how we feel, that's our view. And it seems so shocking to say this, because it just seems so normal. But she had this amazing intelligence, all I can say. She realized, in other words, she realized that how she thinks is what makes her happy. How you think is why you go crazy. But we don't think, we think it's the outside. And this is the Buddha's point. It's so simple, it's embarrassing. It's so simple. As a concept, it's not complicated, but to even hear it properly is so hard. Because we're full of the vindictiveness and how dare, and they don't deserve, what do you mean? That's just being passive, it's good to be angry. I mean, all the assumptions we have. It's like a minefield to get through to hear that point. But we're the beneficiary, you know. You want to be happy? Change your mind, baby. It doesn't mean, that's the thing, she didn't just give up and be passive. She didn't stop for all those years trying to prove her innocence, and she in fact succeeded. Look at the Dalai Lama. I love to use him as an example too, but we think he's kind of in the sky somewhere. We don't, oh, that's just the Dalai Lama, you know. I mean, have you not noticed that over the last 60 years, he hasn't lost his brain? He's funny. He cracks jokes about the maniacs, I mean, destroying his country. He's never given up for 60 years finding methods to change things. So there's no contradiction. To change your own mind doesn't mean you give up. And when you change your own mind, she was more intelligent, more wise, more clear. Therefore, she could act more wisely in finally getting her freedom. But when you're out of your brain with rage, what can you do except rave on? So it's so obvious, it's so practical, but so hard for us to hear this. Why? It's because you have this very vivid, powerful, ego-based, philosophical view about what's the cause of happiness and what's the cause of suffering. And it's all out there. And we're innocent victims. This is how ego thinks. It is a minefield to get to this simple point. Some people, how amazing. I mean, you only can admire And the bonus was she got out, you know. This Buddha has a saying, if you can change something, hey, please change it. But what if you can't? It's sort of so bluntly obvious, but it's just like scary as hell for us to get to this point. So as I said, forget whether your mind's in your skull or your toenail. I don't care. We can, if we think of this, we know it's possible. But look how hard it is. So we are the beneficiaries of this. This is not religious. This is not kind of, you know, you got to be patient to forgive people. It's not like heavy, you know. It's practical for your own sake. Who's the beneficiary of this? You, baby. But because we're so obsessed with what the outside world thinks as well, it seems like, you know, oh, that's just cheap and easy. They just get away with it. That's a very heavy part of it. It's really very true, that one. It's very fascinating. And it's the hardest job we'll ever do. These words are easy, but it's the hardest job we'll ever do. So philosophically speaking and psychologically, Buddha's reason to suggest this as a practice is because he says not just, even if you don't know what your mind is and don't know where it comes from, you can still see the benefit, but this is his understanding of the mind. And he has also the reason not only why I'm angry, but even why Jason, who's my boyfriend again? Jason. That even, you know, there are two, so, okay, this is where the karma one now comes in. This is the part that's heavy for us. You can still see by that woman's example that whether she thinks she's come from the reincarnation or made by God, or mummy makes her, she was able to see the benefit to herself. So this remarkable intelligence, it seems to me, and courage to change her own mind, to see things differently, to reinterpret things. But so she could see she could do that. But then you got the question. We say one of our main ways we suffer in our life is that we say, why is this happening to me? And that's a very, really important point to hear. It's a very valid thing to ask, why is something happening? So in the ordinary philosophical materialist view, the one that we're brought up with, that posits that your mummy and daddy made you, then if I meet Jason out of the blue and he, you know, punches me in the nose in the street, let's say, then there really is no reason, is there? Why did that happen to me? So one, there's the anger in my mind when it happens and the shock. And it's true, my response is, I don't deserve it. And that's correct, that's literally correct, because I've never met this guy before. It's valid to say that, and if you've got the materialist view, it is valid, because each of us began in our mother's womb, each of us randomly, it seems, bumped into each other in the street, and he randomly, without cause, punches me in the nose. And this is much of the suffering on this planet that seems to be the way it is, isn't it? So when we say, you know, why did this happen, then we start looking into Jason's background to see how come he punches, you know. Now that might answer the question, why does Jason punch? It does not answer the question, why he punched me. It doesn't help. It doesn't help at all. And in the materialist view, there is no logic. There is no answer. It just seems like literally random. So this is where Buddha's other view comes in. And that's the view of karma. This too is from Buddha's experience. He didn't make it up. He's observed it. Clearly at a subtle level of mind. Grosser level of mind can't cognize this, past consciousnesses and all this stuff. So the law of karma for the Buddha is this natural law. There's no equivalent in Buddhism of God's law. In the same way that botany is a natural law, gravity is a natural law, mathematics is like a clever person's come along. They didn't invent numbers. There's always been 3 oranges since beginningless time on the table over there. But someone came up with these clever Arab guys, wasn't it? They stopped these old silly old Italians with their X's and their V's, isn't it? This Arab bloke came up with a 0, 1 to 9. How intelligent, how ingenious, you know. So these clever, intelligent humans have observed the natural laws out there of how things grow, of the way things work, of how gravity, whatever, and of clever people have come up with, they've articulated what they have observed in the natural world. Well, Buddha's the same, and he calls this law here the law of karma, which clearly functions at a subtler level and can be cognized with a subtle level of mind, because it includes past lives. Buddha would assert consciousness goes back and back and back. We've had countless lives. We don't need to be created by somebody else. We do fine creating ourselves. And the law of karma, or the law of cause and effect, which is the law that runs in the minds and lives of all sentient beings. The law of karma is, for the Buddha, his observation of how the universe exists. Why there's happiness, why there's suffering, in particular these two. It's highly complex. It's been before the Indians as well, before Buddha came along. They've observed. So from the Buddhist point of view then, in our relationship, there's two things going on. How come we even met in the first place? If the law of karma is a natural law, then it can't be random. If a law called botany does, the garden lives within the law of botany, we know, once you even understand a little bit, there can't be some things there that just randomly popped up. Everything is a fruit of a seed. And the more you know the law of botany, the more you can comprehend it yourself and use it for your own benefit. Well, the Buddha says the law that runs the universe is the law of karma. Not a God, not a creator. Don't need creating, he says. We do fine doing our own mess and our own happiness. This is where it's a big ask. This one is a much bigger one, isn't it, in Buddhism? It's massive. So there's two things going on between Jason and me then. How come we even met in the first place? We've got this ancient history together. There's no way with the law of karma you can randomly bump into somebody, that a person can randomly be kind to you or unkind to you. That's not a possibility. If it's a natural law, which we have to assert here as our hypothesis, which is crazy to us, we don't think this one. So then there are two things going on. What is the cause of my suffering, Buddha says? Or equally my happiness. Jason's kind to me. But the trouble is we never ask why good things happen. I say, we all ask the same questions. I mentioned one question before that only one person has ever asked. Well, there's one question that nobody has ever asked me, ever. Robina, why do good things happen? We only ask about the bad, Only ever, which is incredibly fascinating. What it says about our assumptions is absolutely fascinating. In other words, we don't care if there's a reason why good things happen. Just give me more, please. I'm happy with it. And we can't stand bad things happening, so the way we say it is, why is it happening? It's kind of interesting. So anyway, from the Buddha, there are two main reasons for why I'm having some happiness now in my relationship with Jason. Two main reasons. Many conditions and catalysts and external reasons and secondary reasons. But the two main reasons are both in me. This is initially why karma sounds so shocking. They're both in me. So why am I having happiness right now? That's the fruit of my own past virtue. Any moment of happiness, Buddha says, is from a seed I've planted. They use the concept of of seeds and fruits. Because every millisecond, Buddha says, of my mind going on, I'm sowing seeds in my mind. And those seeds will necessarily ripen in the future. Negative seeds ripen as suffering, positive ripen as happiness. We'll go into this in more detail. So whatever happens I'm experiencing, main cause, my past virtue. Second, and then indeed in relation to him, we've got some karmic connection. It's not possible we just randomly meet each other. We've got some history together from the past. So then, if he's kind to me, that's the fruit of my having been kind to him in the past. That's a virtuous action, karma, action. And then that was impelled by the second cause of karma, which is really the main one, a virtuous state of mind, a positive state of mind. So positive states of mind that inform my positive actions. They're the two main causes of my happiness now. So same with suffering. Why am I suffering now? Because my past neurotic states of mind informed a negative action, which I'm now experiencing the fruit of, back from Jason. Roughly speaking, like this. Again, not complicated concept, just not how we think, that's all. Because Buddha puts the onus on us. He says, I'm the main cause of my own happiness and I'm the main cause of my own suffering. That's the Buddha's view. It's not just luck, it's not good luck or bad luck, it's not random. It's not someone else's fault. He plays a role, absolutely no question. It was his generosity that triggered my happiness, no doubt. I'm the cause of it, though. These are the fundamentals of all Buddhist teachings, this idea of karma and the way the mind works. And karma, this law of karma, runs in the mind. It's the law that the minds and lives of all sentient beings run within, if you like, you know. So understanding these, there's a nice analogy in Buddhism. A bird needs two wings, wisdom and compassion. The compassion wing is the final one. That's where the bodhicitta, helping others, all that is the final part, the main reason for it all. But this is the wisdom wing, the nuts and bolts. Getting the wisdom wing down is the nuts and bolts of all Buddhist teachings about why things happen, who am I, what is this, where did I come from, suffering happens, blah, 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 and the way the mind works. This is the nuts and bolts that one uses to understand oneself, to understand one's own happiness, one's own suffering, and then to sort it all out, you know. On the basis of this, I can then have compassion for others, because we're all in the same boat. And I can be useful to them, you know, that's the idea. So why don't you ask me some questions now? I haven't gone into details, just sort of overview. But ask me some questions. Yes, go. Well, I don't think about it, because I use the Buddha's view now. So you mean as a Buddhist, how would I describe it? Well, I don't think I studied Christianity very much. I mean, the nuns just told us to believe, didn't. I mean, I was a Catholic since a little girl. I was in love with God. As soon as I went to Mass, I announced it was my job, you know, to be the priest, not the altar boy, the priest. And I remember I went to Mass every day. I learned the Mass in Latin. I was in love with God. But I didn't think much about original sin. I didn't have guilt. I didn't think about the bad things. I kind of thought about the good things, you know. The meaning of life and how God is everywhere and wanting to become oneness with God and having experiences of God. It was very kind of devotional for me. I didn't think about original sin. I didn't think about it. So, I mean, but you know the teaching, don't you? You're a Christian? No? You what, darling? Oh, you do? Okay. She was asked that. That's interesting. Well, how do you see an equivalent? I don't think it's an equivalent. I mean, the Buddhist view is just not rational. You know, not being rude. Don't tell your grandmother she'd be insulted. She's devout. She wouldn't be insulted. Well, the Buddhist view is very different, you know. The Buddhist view is, yeah? What, darling? Yeah, but I can't even think of it in Buddhist terms. So that, you know, as we know, the Buddhist view is our consciousness goes back and back and back and back. Negativity is there. See, the Christian teaching is so very different. I mean, I remember having a conversation with my Jesuit priest friend. I haven't seen him in years. But one of the big points he says that they talk about that is not that easy is this concept that Buddhism also has the concept of, Buddhism uses the concept of superior being, but not in the way Christians do, that it's only one. That's permanent, uncaused, has always existed, but doesn't have a cause. So that's where really Buddha has a lot of discussion about that way of existing. He would argue with that. So the idea in Christianity that a perfect being, perfected, superior being, even the definition of Buddha and God are similar. I remember a couple of years ago at the Catholic University in Melbourne, about 5 minutes before I gave the talk, I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about, but I looked up the Merriam-Webster dictionary for the definition of God. 3 essential qualities: infinite wisdom, infinite power, infinite compassion. That's the characteristics of a Buddha. So it seems to me, this is my own comment here, over the centuries, amazing human beings in all these different cultures have come up with lots of different observations that from their point of view of how reality is, what is existence. And many have observed similar things, it seems to me, but they interpret them very differently. That's my thought. So the concept of a creator There's this energy called superior being. Buddha agrees superior being, but he says everyone can become it, which is a very shocking concept for Christians. It's basically saying you can become God too. That's like the worst sin of pride you can even conceive of, you know. So the concept of the Christian teaching is, and this is what I was discussing with my priest friend, that there's a perfect, if you can imagine a being, and Buddhism would say that, we can become it, as that is existing. It's perfect, there's no mistake, there's no ego, it's not possible that they can create a manifestation of themselves called me, or humans, and then somehow you can then be separated from that and become ordinary again. Sinful, in other words. That's an impossibility. Literally impossible in the Buddhist view. Because if you're a perfect being, in Buddhist view, you're capable of manifesting yourself in many forms, but they would never, ever be separate. They couldn't be. You understand my point? So it just has no meaning. And I said to my priest, I said, this is, from the Buddhist perspective, this is a perfect being who manifests another part of themselves as another person, which is called creating. A Buddha can do that, I said. But that being, whether they manifest as a dog or a human, would never, ever be anything but a Buddha. It would look like a dog, would look like a human, but it could never become separate. You could never lose that. In other words, this is the fundamental Buddhist view. When you've realized emptiness, when you've cut the root of all delusions, not to mention becoming a Buddha, you can never, ever suffer again. Not possible. You've cut the root of it. So it's a very, very different understanding. So I wouldn't even know how to explain to you, Grandma. I'd just tell her what the Buddhist view would be instead. It's not possible you can be separate from God. If God made you, you are God also. You will be God also. It would be impossible to be ordinary. This is weird. You can't say God's weird, so I wouldn't want to say that. That's rude, isn't it? Yes. What's your question? Who? Go on. I understand. Yeah. Well, first of all, we're really social beings, aren't we? And we take that as a given in our culture. And I think we even psychologically, in our culture, we even define ourselves in terms of being social beings, meaning we need other people to become who we are. It would seem to me that's how we think. Would you agree? We're always looking for partners, friends, babies, bosses. Do you understand? We're always looking for other people to reinforce us. Would you agree with that? Or to live our lives with each other. Would you agree? That's true, isn't it? And I think we sort of take that model for granted. So if we are on the Buddhist path to become my Sangye, to achieve the wisdom wing, to develop my own marvelous potential and to help others, the only reason for a job, the only reason to have babies, the only reason to have a partnership, the only reason to become a multimillionaire, the only reason to do anything would be to help do that job. So that job would, so that partnership, that relationship, that mother, daughter, beloved, whatever the relationship is, could only be a relationship that would help you develop wisdom and give up attachment and neurosis and develop love and compassion. That's the bottom line. There's no other purpose. Do you understand my point? What? Part of what, karmic? Oh, of course, it's all karma, but that's like asking, is an oak tree due to the result of the law of botany? Well, there's nothing in a garden that isn't due to botany, is there? Are you hearing my point? That everything is only karma, because this is the way the universe runs. The people you meet, the things that happen to you, is only a result of karma, no other reason. There's no other reason. It's not random. It's not just, there's no other reason. So that's a fundamental law. That's not, whoever you run into, whatever they, okay, karma, for the Buddha, past actions, every millisecond of what any sentient being says, does, thinks, whatever, sows seeds in the mind. Every millisecond. It's naturally just what happens. And there's 4 ways then that our karmic seeds of the past are ripening every second in the present. The first one, first of all, the first way our karma from the past ripened is about getting a human body. Our mind going from the past life, programmed due to our past morality and virtue, Buddha says, and when the mind leaves the body, it finds its way to our present mummy's human womb. That's not some random event. That's the result of our past virtue. Then second, in our case, a human. Second, within this human body, we all can see, we've all got personalities, haven't we? We've got the Hitlers and the Mother Teresas, haven't we? and anywhere in between. Would you agree with that, as far as humans are concerned? So they are the result of our own past actions, not the result of mummy and daddy. You don't get anger and love and being good at piano from your mummy and daddy. You get them from your own past. You become programmed with those tendencies. So the third way your karma ripens is that's where sentient beings come into it. The people you meet from the time you're conceived until the time you die. Think of your life now. You can divide all the beings you've met and had relationship with since you were a kid, including the rats who shit in your kitchen, to your little puppy dog, to the mummy, to your siblings, to your auntie, to your daddy, the next door neighbour. We've got relationships with all these beings, haven't we, up until now? Would you agree? Our lives are full of relationships. And if you want to divide it, you've got people who've been mean to you and people who've been kind to you. And often they change the same roles, different roles. Do you understand my point? That's it. That's due to karma, all due to karma. If he's mean to me, I must have been mean to him. If he's kind to me, I must have been kind to him. Speaking simply. So that's just the way the law of karma plays out. So learning to want to use this law to get the best garden, because your life's your garden, you learn the law so you can learn to be in control of it, not just be a victim of it. Do you understand? You learn to do the weeding and growing the flowers. So that's where you take control of it, and then given that you want to end up being a sangye, you understand, you choose. You ensure that you control your body, control your speech, control your mind, don't make a mess of other people, don't harm, don't kill, don't lie, and then you try to choose the best people in your relation, or whatever happens in your life, you use it as grist for your mill to help you lessen your neuroses and grow your goodness. That becomes then using the law of karma, you make that the purpose of your life, and you'll end up getting rid of the rubbish and growing the goodness. So it's all karmic, of course it is, there's nothing else. There's no such thing as random. Can't be for the Buddha. Does that answer your question? Yeah. So the consciousness that comes into your room when you conjoin with your boy or whatever happens these days, you can do it in a petri dish too, but the consciousness that goes in, come in at the first second of conception. So that consciousness, you're very, very, I mean, that's intense karma to have with somebody. They get born in your body. You couldn't get anything more personal than that. It's a very powerful karmic connection we have with our babies. Do you understand? Yeah. Did that answer your question in general? Good. Someone else? Yes. But what do you mean by delusion here? What, darling? Yeah, but I think to say it that way is very interesting, to say she pretended she was a monk. I think there could be a way that you could be totally delusional living in La La Land and you better be locked up, honey. And there's another way that's profound that I think she did that was not delusional. It was profound intelligence. So there's a big difference between delusional and intelligence changing, because the Buddha would say, in the end, this is something pretty profound that she said, because one of the key points that Buddha's making, and all these teachings get to this point, is that you can interpret things differently. Like, your boyfriend is mean to you one day. No, just a minute. I hear your question exactly. So you know yourself, and you're working on yourself. You decide you want to become a better person, and you know that you're not going to rely totally on your boyfriend making you happy. You've got to make yourself happy, okay? So you know when one morning you're so annoyed with him, and then he doesn't put the toilet seat down, or he doesn't do the dishes properly, or he farts in the sheets instead of. I'm talking baby things. You've got a choice. This is the whole point. This is what Buddha's saying. You've got a choice to follow your anger or to not be angry. That's not being delusional. That's being intelligent. But if you live in a la-la world because you've gone completely insane, you can't cope with suffering, and you think you're living in heaven, but your mind's gone mad, that's very, very, very different. Are you seeing what I'm saying? Because things aren't set in stone. Have you ever in your life decided not to say an angry word when you felt angry? Right there, you just did that. That's not delusional. That's practice. But if you're mentally ill and you think you're living in heaven, then you're seriously mentally ill. But just saying, I decided I'm not a prisoner, I'm a monk, that was not delusional. That was highly intelligent decision, realizing she couldn't change the outside world. Instead of raging and kicking against it and bashing her head against a brick wall, she decided to use her situation for her advantage. That's intelligence, not delusional. Can you see the difference? Yeah. But what do you mean by, so this is, okay, good, I hear your point, but it's a really good point. What do you mean by, okay, let's use a simple example of you deciding that smell of the shit in the bathroom, instead of going, oh, yuck, this is revolting, why is he making the smell of the bathroom again? Come on, Robina, give it a break, it's a delicious smell, enjoy it, breathe it in, baby. That's called dealing with it. That's a method of dealing with it, calling it not being stuck in my negative, angry interpretation of something, changing your mind about it. That is what dealing with it is. Can you hear that? Now, please wait, please wait. Can you see that point? Can you see what I'm saying, or not? So what would you mean by, instead of dealing with the suffering, to call it something different? Give me an example of that. Well, sweetie? Now, please, use this example. You would go to the bathroom and you're really fed with your boyfriend's stinky shit. I mean, it's a typical example. You walk into any toilet and it's stinky. We immediately, okay, this is a good example. We resist it, don't we? And this is your own. We don't mind our own. It's kind of interesting. But if somebody else's, it's instant aversion. Do you agree? It's like, oh no. You hold your breath, it's disgusting, and then you're annoyed. Would you agree with this? So that's called a tiny suffering. Keep it simple. So what do you mean, as opposed to calling it something different, you say deal with it. What would deal with it look like? What would you do with your mind? This is a good example, a simple example. This is the point we're getting to. What does deal with it mean, except, but then still you're going to be angry. Well, then you've got to go to the toilet. You can't make the shit go away. So is it not to your advantage not to be angry? There you go. Just call it something different. There's nothing wrong with that. But you see, we've got this view in the world that everything's so concrete. That's the real thing. It's real. But the Buddha's view, when it gets really advanced, is says nothing is existing as it is. There's nothing we can't change the interpretation of. If our mind's very rigid, it is wrong. What do you mean change it and see it as good? It is wrong that he made the toilet smell. That's rigidity. That's fundamentalism. That's anger. That's why we all suffer. So we can all able to forgive and change our mind, but this is conscious. This is genuine, really conscious practice. It's not just living in a fantasy. This is being delusional, as opposed to dealing with it. Not like that. Are we communicating a little bit? Well, no, if it's not, no, that's not helpful. If you're living in a fantasy world, that's not helpful. It's more delusion. But that's not what I'm talking about here. This is conscious, profound approach, actually. Forgiving your sister for the harm she did. So we think, well, she did harm me. How can I just see it as different? That's reality. She did harm me. And we think forever eternity, she harmed me. That's absolute fundamentalism, rigidity, unable to see anything from another point of view. That's why we suffer. But we tend to think that's real. It is real, but there's a way of dealing with it. There's a multitude of ways of dealing with it. And surely, that's what forgiveness is. Forgiveness, finally, we love the idea of forgiveness. So you know yourself, if you did something bad to your sister 32 years ago, and she never ever forgets it, because that's real. You're heartbroken because you know it doesn't define the whole of you. But all Buddha's saying is, and we haven't gone into this, that all these neuroses, anger and attachment, they over-exaggerate something and we never let go of it. So calling it something different is not necessarily delusional. And if it is delusional, that's as dangerous as anything else. Because you're not living in reality. Do you understand my point? Yeah. What was your point in relation to that? Sorry, darling? Yes. Yeah. Yes. 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 Exactly. No, see, this is the thing. As the Buddha says, if you can... okay. There I am, Jason, he's mean. Okay, there I am coming into this relationship. This is the Buddha's approach. Coming into this relationship with all this bottomless pit of attachment. This fantasy craving that now I've finally found happiness. And so what I'm doing is with this attachment, and this is one of the key things the Buddha talks about, the suffering of this fantasy that I projected onto him, coming from my own misery, coming from my own bottomless pit of misery and dissatisfaction. Then this hunger, this emotional hunger called attachment, Buddha says it's our main delusion in daily life. It informs everything we do. There's this constant, okay, start again. The Buddha's idea psychologically of why we suffer is all these neuroses in our mind that he says we can get rid of. Okay, so there's like a hierarchy of them in Buddhist psychology. The root one, they use the term delusion or disturbing emotion or whatever, but the root problem is this primordially deeply instinctive, mistaken sense of a poor, lonely, bereft, unhappy, separate little me floating through life empty. So this gives rise to this enormous kind of sense of dissatisfaction, which this is attachment. Then the next level of attachment is this huge emotional hunger, because I'm always dissatisfied, to find something out there such that when I get it, it'll fill me up with happiness. So in this case, I'm looking for a boy. This attachment, like this little vampire in me, is looking for a boy. And all the assumptions of attachment, they're so instinctive we don't even analyze them. We have to unpack them. The assumptions of attachment, I'm nothing. Therefore, I need somebody. So that I dump this neediness onto him. It makes him look way more delicious than he really is. One of the big functions of attachment is it exaggerates his deliciousness. I see this perfect person out there, and there's this hunger that he will satisfy my needs now. So then this brings this massive expectation, this huge possessiveness. This is attachment. This is the hell of most relationships. And it's so normal for us, we don't even question it. So it's for the Buddha, it's the symptom of a really mentally ill person. I mean, I know it sounds extreme to say that, but he says any attachment at all is this sense that I am not anything unless I have something. So always hungering after something, hankering after something, hungrily looking for something through the objects of the senses. And the main one is people. We almost feel like we're half a person. We're born as half a person, and you need another person to make you whole. That's how deep this attachment is. And that's just something so normal in our culture. So I'm looking for a person to fill me up. So that means every millisecond, this expectation of attachment assumes he has to do everything to fulfill my fantasies. It's not being brutal. This is how we are. And that's so what happens when he doesn't when he doesn't fulfill my attachment's needs? When he farts in the bathroom too many times, doesn't put the toilet seat down. I'm talking little baby things. Forget deep abuse. Ordinary things. The response when my attachment doesn't get what it wants is called aversion. So the extreme level of aversion is anger. The internalized level of aversion is depression. And there's a spectrum the whole spectrum there. Irritation, annoyed, frustrated, upset, angry, anxious. All of these are variations of thwarted attachment. And this is happening 1,000 times a day. So becoming familiar with this process is really the job of being a Buddhist. So then starting to realize, okay, in this relationship, let's say he becomes abusive. He doesn't love me much anymore. He doesn't look at me the same way. He doesn't give me what I want. He doesn't care about how I think. So because my attachment is not getting what it wants, I'm absolutely having a panic attack. Frantic, freaked out, unhappy. He doesn't love me anymore. Obsessed with it, jealous, depressed, angry. This is normal life. Look at our minds. And I'm always believing he's the cause of it. I don't ever think my attachment's the reason. But Buddha says it's my attachment, my bottomless pit of hunger is the problem. There's this massive expectation every second that he must do exactly what my attachment wants. This is the neurotic side of us. There's a good side of us too. So we'll look at what causes suffering. So when if I'm still in that mode, which is the victim mode, look how we are. I don't believe for 1 second anything in my mind is playing any role in this. I take my attachment as normal. I think anger's normal. I think jealousy's normal. And he's completely to blame. I mean, completely to blame. That's the view of the victim. That's join the universe here, okay? And then what happens? So not only do I not know I can change my mind, but even more fundamental, more shocking, I don't even know I could leave. So we go back like moths to a flame until one of us kills the other. Look at the world. Look at the world. So if I'm beginning to look into my mind, I heard Buddha's teaching, let's say, or do a bit of therapy, and I realise I can start to make some decisions, make some choices here. Then when it comes down to it and he starts to abuse, I've got two choices precisely. Two choices. Stay, because I've chosen that there's something worthwhile there, or go. But we don't know, we don't think we can do either. Why do you think 40% of all women who get murdered on this planet are murdered by the bloke in the same bed? Because we're all victims. It's not being horrible. And this is the suffering of attachment, aversion, jealousy, anxiety, despair, and they are the symptoms which we think are normal of a mentally ill person, of a bereft, nothing person. This is how we are. This is the nightmare. This is what Buddha means by being in samsara. So so this woman in prison, she only had one option. She couldn't leave. And that's what I admire so much about my friends in prison. They know they can't change it, so they change their mind instead. That's why I have such admiration for them. But we don't even know we can leave. The number of people in bad relationships, in lousy jobs, all the reasons we give ourselves, it's as if we're in prison. It's as if we really are locked in. Oh, I couldn't leave him, no. Oh, no, I might upset him. Oh, no, I couldn't do that because we've got no money. Oh, I couldn't do that, I've got no security. Oh, I couldn't do that for the children. Oh, no, he might be blah, blah, blah. We have all these reasons we give as valid logic, but we don't even, if you're going to choose to stay, at least change your mind. But we don't even know we can do that either. This is the nightmare of ordinary relationships, ordinary life. Your job, your friend, your mother. Look at us. We're like victims who really believe we can change nothing. So we just go like lemmings and we run back like a moth to a flame until one day we kill each other. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but hear my point. Are we communicating here? So the typical one of the women, I'm not trying to blame men, it's just the way life is, right? But if we can begin to stop being victims, we can begin to stop being victims, begin to realise we can also have power. All these words are so cliched. But when you're the victim mentality, victims are monstrous. Victims are like evil, and we're all victims. We love to blame. I'm not criticising. I'm not saying the world is not a monstrous place. People do terrible things to each other, and this is part of the karma. We're so overwhelmed by the suffering, we really can't see a choice. I'm not talking men or women here, it's people. This is the worst suffering. This is the way Buddha would define this suffering we have, But we've got so much more power than we think. This is the point that Buddha's making, really. And the first one is you change your mind. If you can't change it, then what are you going to do? We don't even realise we can change our mind. I don't even realise I can leave Jason any time I like. But we really believe we can't. And then we don't realise that we can choose to stay. That's what my friends in prison do. They decide to make it their choice. So they stop being victims. Then you become powerful. And then you stop suffering. Are we communicating, people? Yeah. Yeah, I understand. Well, yeah, exactly. Well, this is a different definition here. And I think this is hard for us to hear. But we know that same words have different definitions. Do you agree with that? I always joke and say when I lived in London, I lived in a flat. Now everybody lives in an apartment because we're all Americanised, right? But I remember I lived in a flat. But let's say I've never heard of the geometric thing called flat. And someone says that's flat. I'll go, oh, I have to live there? You wouldn't think that. You've got to change your definition, don't you? Well, the attachment you're talking is not the attachment Buddha's talking. It's a different, same word, completely different definition. That's called bonding with somebody and being close to somebody. That's great. That's not what Buddha's talking. He's talking about this. And this is where Buddha's so unique in his approach to the mind, as I'm suggesting already, that we can get rid of all the rubbish and grow all the goodness. We know we have anxiety and attachment and love and anger and so on. And we know we have love and compassion, but we assume they're all normal. There's no view that we can get rid of them. Do you see what I'm saying? So the Buddha's view is radically different from a starting point, which means you have to learn to distinguish between the neuroses and the goodness. And that's the key job of being a Buddhist. So this hierarchy of these neurotic states of mind that we have to identify deeply, because they're the cause of the suffering, and we can get rid of them. So the root one is, they call it ego grasping, this root sense of neurotic, deeply ingrained, mistaken sense of self. And this is so abstract for us because we don't have a view like this in our culture. Then on the basis of that, there's this immense emotional hunger. because the assumption of the separate I is lonely and bereft, so you're always hungry for something. But this is normal for us. So the first level of hunger is for the objects of the senses, isn't it? Always for food. And so attachment is like over-exaggerated, distorted, neurotic, emotional hunger for something. The assumption being that I'm missing it. You see my point? Always it's food or people or sounds or smells or houses. I mean, attachment is limitless in its capacity to glom onto something. And each of us has got a different personality. Some of us for security, for a beautiful home, for the man, for the babies, for the handbags, for the money, you name it, right? So we're talking the classic one here of the relationship, which is pretty fundamental. So what attachment does, first of all, I said it's an emotional hunger. There was always hankering and looking for an object. Then I find this object. And the more, the more hungry this attachment is, the more, the assumption is the more miserable I am. If you can hear that. If you're always hungry for something, it's because you're missing it, isn't it? So this is the symptom of this attachment. A function of it is that always looking, so this attachment has then a function of exaggerating the deliciousness of the object. So that's when you're in love with Jason. He looks like God incarnate. You look like you found the universe. Finally, I found happiness. So it also has this function of then possessing him, and then expectation, massive expectation, every second. Expectation. And it's also instinctive, we just don't notice it. So then that expectation, I consider it's normal, that he will fulfill my happiness, which means he must look at me every second and be kind to me every second and never do anything I dislike. This is the natural assumption of attachment. And I'm saying it sounds kind of brutal, but if we analyze it, it is this. So the more hungry I am, the second he doesn't do what my attachment wants, panic attack. Isn't it? Oh my God, doesn't love me anymore. Anxiety, fears, jealousy, depending on your personality. This is life. Look at us. This is the nightmarish attachment. The one you're talking about is bonding with people and being kind and connected. How marvelous.
The irony to me is that psychologists say that lack of attachment
But which attachment?
bonding.
Well, that's what we're not discussing that. But we're not discussing that. I'm not saying give that up.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
But there's no irony there. But there's no irony because you're not talking about what Buddha's talking. There's a different word. You've got to use it. We've got to use different. Well, remember, we've got different definitions. That's all. It's not the attachment Buddha's talking about. He's not saying give up connectedness. Why would you? He's not saying that. You say you're confusing the definitions again. Are you seeing what I'm saying?
To some degree, yes. I feel like
No, say it. Say it. Say it.
I feel like it's an evolution.
What
or
is?
Spectrum. The attachment of a parent and child, and then how that evolves in a person's life, and how that attachment, the relationship of a parent and child, evolves and changes into how one relates to.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about here, though. But that's not what but this is not what Buddha's talking about. This is the trouble is the same word. I'm not describing what you're describing. There's a very distinct Buddhist approach to it. It's not how we talk in the world. So it takes a while to hear it because it's not how we think, you know. So, okay, let me ask you this question. Do you recognize what I'm saying? Neediness, expectation, possessiveness? That's what Buddha means by attachment. It's like a vampire inside. There's frantic, needy, bottomless pit, hungry, never satisfied, and always expecting someone else to fulfill, and then anger and resentful and panic and jealous when it doesn't get what it wants. That's what Buddha's talking about. But we think it's so normal that we don't question it. But Buddha's saying it's a mental illness, and I don't use that word lightly. It's quite shocking to hear this, because we take much of this stuff that we think is normal, anxiety, anger, upset, irritated, annoyed, jealous, depressed. We think they're normal states of mind, and here's the cause of them. So this takes a while to hear the Buddha's view. Quite different. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Oh, very good. Yes, there you go. There you go.
That was a much easier example.
Oh, there you go. That's right.
No, but in all seriousness, so when we make that choice to either think about the path we're going or believe that,
Yeah, that's right.
that choice that we perceive as free will or perceived choice, is that not a way to practice itself? And that's always been, I've been,
Okay. Okay.
sitting
I understand.
for 20 years and I've never really got to it out of the house.
I understand. At any given moment in your life, let's say you come up to a piano. In theory, you could say we all have we have the ability to make the choice to play piano. Do you agree with that? You agree with that, don't you? Okay. But what is your ability to play piano dependent upon?
It's a combination of physical facility, like ear, respond to
Right.
when I first started.
You've got potential. You have to have the potential, don't you?
Yes,
So good. So what if you're deaf?
well, sometimes that,
No, but if generally speaking,
generally speaking, no.
one of the conditions is to hear it. So if that's missing, then you don't at that moment have the ability to choose to play piano, do you? So then it's dependent arising. Choice is also dependent arising, but we hear it, and this is why this one is free will. I find it's really interesting because you've got to give it its historical context. It came from Jesus. But we talk about it like as if it's a scientific truth. But analyse free will. It's a meaningless concept. Free implies not dependent on anything. Free means absolute. It's a meaningless concept, free will.
But not mundane, but more, we've had the habit, right? Who talks about habit or I do this, I try to take possession of this thing like that.
You all hear him? Can you hear him properly?
But then I made one day I make a choice to, I perceive that
Right, so what's the question? So good, what's the question? So what's the question?
Is that when I made the different choice, that's a karma?
But what else would it, what else, everything is, okay. Okay.
Or is there a free, is there a free?
No, this is my saying, is that free is meaningless. No, don't just say good, no, let's talk about it so you can understand it. Free implies there's no cause. Free implies an absolute. So then, nothing is like that. Everything, at this given moment, everything, the ability to choose to do anything, the ability to even have the thought arise to do anything, has to be dependent upon the habit that's there. How else can it come?
No, I agree.
But what's the, but wait, no, wait. No, excuse me, I beg your pardon. Deterministic, what's that mean? What's that mean, deterministic?
If everything that happens is a karma arise,
Forget the word karma, keep it simple English.
everything that happens
Think of it, everything, ordinary life.
causes the
Uh-huh.
what I perceive as a choice.
No, but your choice is, the choice you want is a choice that doesn't have a cause. And there can't be such a thing. You think because you can choose something because it came from a previous thing, therefore you've got no choice. That's nihilism. You've got to understand emptiness more. That's your missing piece. Dependent arising and emptiness. Dependent arising and emptiness. I mean, you can't, how can you choose to do anything if all the conditions aren't there? So everything you choose has to have all the conditions there. And that's called dependent arising.
That seems consistent.
Well, that is dependent arising.
You said that even choice.
Well, of course it is. But see, because we're so used to this idea of free will, excuse me, given its historical context, it comes from Jesus. I like Jesus, but he's got a different view from the Buddha. But we all say it like it's some scientific finding, like as if some absolute, everybody has the choice, you know? It's a meaningless concept. It's meaningless. Everything is dependent. Every single thing is dependent arising. It's how it is. There's nothing that can't be dependent arising. Otherwise, it's just plucking it out of the sky. It's existing in isolation with no conditions informing it. But this whole Buddha's entire point about everything, the universe. That's the thing to think about, you know?
No, well, it makes sense. It's always seemed logical. I've just never heard it explicitly said that. In fact, there is, a choice. Every choice that's made is simply.
It's dependent. I mean, if you're sitting at the piano and you put your finger on C major, whatever it is, C, middle C, I choose to play middle C, that's dependent on even calling it middle C. Nothing can exist when we say free will as if somehow it's there with no anything affecting it. That's exactly the view the Buddha argues with. That's called self-existence, which is exactly what he says is impossibility. Everything is dependent. This is how it is. But okay. The fact is, our life is like this. We don't question it though. So, you said deterministic. Okay. Let's say you're a botanist or a gardener, and you have this acre of ground out there, and you've sown a whole bunch of seeds. But I've never heard of botany. I wouldn't know such a law existed, let's say. And then you proceed, you've put your seeds in, and you're a good gardener, and you proceed to explain to me that in 20 years how it'll look. You could do that, couldn't you? And I'll go, wow, Jason, you're clairvoyant. You'll say, no, Robina, I just know the laws of botany. So we don't mind that. We don't mind that. That's deterministic. If you put a seed in the ground that's called a rose seed, honey, it is a fact that it'll bring a rose on a bloody apricot. That's called deterministic, but we don't mind it when it comes to the laws of the world. But as soon as we hear when it comes to behaviour, because we don't have that view, it just seems like kind of weird and deterministic and fatalistic, all that rubbish. But it's called laws. They all have rules. Do you see my point?
I do.
Okay then. Good. Just that we're so not used to hearing about happiness and suffering, living according to a law, because we think it's good luck and bad luck. Or we think God has the... I'm not being rude about God. We think it's God up there with his plan, and that's okay if you have faith in God. He's got a plan. At least you know he's got a plan, but you don't need to know his plan, because you trust him. But here, the Buddha says the plan is for us to learn, like botany. And there's always a law, and laws are dependent on arising. Everything's dependent on arising. The date at which your rose bush will grow. You can determine it if you really know the laws as well. It's the same. But also,
I've never heard anyone answer the question explicitly. Yes, that's right.
Well, of course it is. And that's what, of course it is. But I mean, the fact is, but we know there are so many other laws that could intervene with your roses, isn't it? So maybe the storms will come one day and destroy all the lot of this. So one law comes along. So that's why if you have the holy beings, as they progress spiritually, as you lessen the delusions, grow the goodness, get more concentration, you get clairvoyance. You remove the obstacles from the mind, the grosser level of mind, and you can see, and the more you become spiritually developed, the more you become a botanist, the more intricate, the more sophisticated is your ability to determine the laws now, this, that, mapping it out next year, the weather, this and that. You have to be pretty much a genius, but it is possible. It is possible. It is doable. Look at ordinary laws. Buddha says the same thing applies to the mind and happiness and suffering. Do you understand? Great, good, good. What else? Yes. A bit louder, darling. How can you help somebody? Well, okay. How if somebody's physically sick and you're not an acupuncturist, you can't do much, can you? If you say, how can I help them? But if the more good you are at acupuncture, the more you can help them, isn't it? Well, here, what we're talking about, mental acupuncture, is wisdom. You knowing your mind, you're understanding this person, you're having wisdom, you're having compassion. The more you're capable is the more you can help this person. But if they're so strongly wanting to kill themselves, you know you can be the most genius person in the universe, it mightn't make a difference. So the very least you can do is love a person, connect with a person, hold a person, tell them they're valuable, tell them but if they're really, the street is so strong, you know nothing will help them. But what I'm getting at is, compassion is the wish to help somebody, but it's wisdom, which enables you to know how. That's your mind and your practice and your work. That's why I use the analogy of acupuncture. Are you hearing my point? What, darling? Well, not so be it. That sounds very cruel. It's heartbreaking. You do your best, don't you, to help a person? Wouldn't you? Well, how would you help a person? What would you think would be naturally for what you do? No, never mind what is hard. Just what do you think you would do? What, darling? Close. Love them, help them, support them. That's right, exactly. No, forget that point. No, we're not asking their result. We're talking about you. So it's to be loving, to be kind, to be wise, to be supportive as much as we can, isn't it? Genuinely. That's all we can do, isn't it? That's all we can do, isn't it? Do you agree? Well, then do your best, but it doesn't mean we'll succeed. Do you understand? Yeah. What else, people? Somebody else? Questions? I don't know what the time is. Have we got a clock? Oh, there it is. Oh, it's time to go home, isn't it? It's 8 for nearly 2 hours, my gosh. Any more questions before we finish? Yes, behind there. Go, sweetheart. Give an I mean, okay, I hear you theoretically, but give me a simple example when that might arise. That's a pretty heavy one, isn't it? Give me a simple example. What? Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes, exactly. No, I understand. If you're a practitioner and you're working on your mind and you understand karma, so use the Buddhist view, you have a view of karma, you understand your mind, you've practiced, you've got control over your delusions, and you have a job to protect people, then if you were really doing it well, you'd have such compassion for the shooter as well as the victims, and you would do everything you could to prevent the shooter from harming others, but first for their sake. It was out of fear and anger, you just make a mess. Look at the world, look at the world. I mean, look at all the unfortunate stories about all the police shooting people, and it's always fear, panic and fear, panic and fear, panic attack and fear, you know? So if you're really practicing and you've got no fear and you've got kindness and compassion, but you're also very powerful, you could easily, and you wouldn't have to necessarily kill them. That's the thing with panic happens. When panic takes over, and people die, you know? There's so many ways you could stop a person. But if it really is the only way, you would do it, but out of compassion for that person. That's a profound action. But that demands a lot of practice, doesn't it? Do you see my point? Absolutely, there's no question. Because motivation, sincere motivation, not pretending, is the key factor that determines the karma we create. But you'd have to really be practicing, wouldn't you, to have compassion for a shooter? Because the spontaneous one we have is to have compassion for their victims and to hate the shooter. Do you understand? Or fear of the shooter. So, but that's an ideal scenario, to have compassion. And the reason to have compassion is the terrible karma that person is going to create. Huh? What? That's the point, exactly. But to make sure you stop him from shooting. I have a friend in Australia, this big guy, he looked like a gangster. I went to a restaurant one time, I wouldn't let him in. He's a policeman. He's a policeman, a kind, gentle guy, but he looks like he's massive, big, with tattoos, you know. And he's a dearest man. He was a detective, I think, and he's put behind the desk, but he wanted to stay on the streets in this really rough town in near Sydney. And he was genuinely compassionate, genuinely kind, and would often have to completely use violence with the kids, but it was only out of kindness for them. You knew it was true, and they trusted him. It was very interesting. It's possible. Of course it's possible. But you've got to be trained to do that in your heart and really have an appreciation for human beings. And no fear. You have to have no fear. It's like tough love with your kid, isn't it? You know? Possible. Of course it's possible. Absolutely. What else, people? Yeah. What is the beginning? Okay, so your problem is the Buddhist idea. Okay, the Christian idea is God, an energy called God, right? Isn't it? Is the source of everything. You agree? So that energy called God, the rough teaching, the Hindus have a similar teaching. This is where Buddha disagrees. It doesn't have a cause. It's always just been permanent, and it's sort of permanent. Buddha would say nothing can exist like that. Okay, it's easy to say these words simply now, but it goes into great depth, you know, the literature and all the practices. So the other option is your mum and your daddy are the creator, right? So then we track it back to the first Big Bang, don't we? So the Dalai Lama said one time in all these conversations with these scientists, he said, Big Bang, no problem. Just not the first Big Bang, that's all. So the Buddha's view is, especially in the Vajrayana literature, there's detailed descriptions of the intimate relationship between body and mind, the physical and mental energy, and the physical energy is the four elements. That's how we used to talk in the Middle Ages, you know, earth, air, fire, water. So as far as the Buddha's view is concerned, the four elements are beginningless. So is minds. But it's so shocking to us to hear that something is beginningless. You can't find the first moment. You can't find the first Big Bang. Because we somehow have this misconception, Buddha says, this is coming from this ego grasping, this wrong view in our mind, that somehow there has to be some first moment of everything. When did it begin? When did I begin? Was it like the needle in the haystack? That's when it happened. But the Buddha's view is it's not rational. Even just the concept, okay, the whole concept is cause and effect. By definition, effect is the result of a cause. Would you agree? So surely that cause is the effect in turn of a previous cause, wouldn't it be? So try and just even logically try and come to a point where you say there's the first cause. So that implies there's a first thing that didn't have a cause itself. That's not rational, is it? So as much as it's weird to our ears to hear that cause and effect is literally necessarily beginningless, you can't have a first cause by definition. If you posit cause and effect, you can't by definition have a first cause. Impossible. That's implying something had no cause. Well, then you can't say cause and effect then. It's just nonsense. It contradicts. But we're not happy with it. It's weird to say beginningless, isn't it? It sounds hilarious. What? Well, so is physical. It's physical, continuum, mental, both the same.
Sure, physical, but physical, there's, it's like non-body come together to form a body.
No, wait a minute. No, it's not a question of that. Just think of the four elements. The Buddhist view would say the four elements are the fundamental building blocks of all physical phenomena. So those four elements configure into certain shapes and sizes due to karma or whatever, but you can't have a first moment of the four elements. That's all. They're beginningless. Go back in a linear sense. This moment of the physical has to come from a previous moment. You get back, you could find at a certain point the beginning of this whole entire universe, but that was from imploded previous four elements and previous universes and previous universes and previous universes since beginningless time. The same with minds. What's the difference? What's the problem with minds? You keep saying that, but what's the problem with the mind? You keep saying that part. Don't worry about the body. No, stop saying that. You've said it several times. No, please talk about the mind. What's the problem with the mind?
So the mind, I don't understand why it can't be in a similar way that it comes into existence through the causes and conditions.
It comes into existence from what? From what? From what? What is the... Okay, now keep it more simple. Keep it more simple. Keep it more simple. Keep it more simple.
How do I make it more simple?
I'm about to tell you. I'm waiting for you to listen. Mind is a name given to a bunch of thoughts and feelings and emotions, okay? It's just a label for cognition. So this moment of intelligence in your mind, what's the main cause of it? Keep it really simple. Thank you very much. Good. And what's the cause of the previous moment of intelligence? I beg your pardon? Precisely, and then try and find the first one. Same concept. Whereas if you keep going back, you'll go back 1 trillion years, and you will never find a first moment of that intelligence. You can't, because it implies a first moment which didn't have a cause, which means cause and effect has just exploded into meaningless nonsense. So think like that. Can you hear me? Huh? Great, good. Think about that then. That's all. Somebody else, people, before we go home? Yes. The who? Uh-huh. What do? Sorry, what? Where? In the human realm, you mean? In the human realm? Well, I can't understand you, darling. Forgive me, my Australian ears can't hear you. Slower. More articulate. Speak your words. That's not a finite number of minds, that's one mind. One mind goes from one body to the next. It's the same mind. Well, of course it is. Where else would it come from? What, darling, what? What are you saying? Forgive me. I want to understand you. You have to forgive me. It's my mistake. So please go more slowly or something for my sake so I can hear you. That's right. Exactly. Well, don't call. There are trillions. Okay, Buddha's view is there are trillions upon countless trillions of minds. Whatever. Sure, it's finite. So sure it is. Where are these living beings you're talking about? In the human realm. So why is that? Why is a contradiction? There's many. Okay, as many minds as there are, is as many rebirths as there are. They're equal. You can't have one and not the other. What? Of course it is. Of course there can never be more. How can you have more minds when minds are beginningless? You can't get new minds. What? Who said? I think you've got to see, you're not, okay, you've got to get the Buddha's view first, because I think your assumptions are coming from another view. There are trillions of consciousnesses, and they're all beginningless, and they're all endless. So there is a cap number of minds, but it's a limitless number. There can never be less and never be more. And they're continually being reborn in samsara until they start changing and becoming a Buddha mind. But the mind is still as beginningless and endless. There's never more minds and never less. Not possible. No mind can go out of being. Well, as many minds as there are, as many lives as there are. They're equal. As many minds as there are is as many lives as there are. And then as those minds stop becoming samsaric and get out of samsara and become a sangye, their mind still exists. But this goes without saying if there's a limitless number of minds. Okay, the point is there can't be less minds and there can never be more. Minds they never stopped existing and they can never go out of existence. So then but just stop. What's a life if it's not a mind? A mind is a person is a mind possessor. A life is a person with a mind who's got a certain kind of physicality. There are dogs and ants and humans and Buddhas. There's a beginningless and endless river of mental moments. That's one mind, and there are trillions of those, and they can never come into existence and they never go out of existence. So as many lives as there are is as many minds as there are. Equal. They're equal. They're equal. So where's the problem? I want to understand you. Where's the problem? What? Sorry, what? One what? But a life is, you're a human being now. You'll be a rat next life and a human the past life. Yes? Because they've come from other realms of existence. But you never said it once. You never asked it once. And I kept repeating, every time you said it, I said, you mean human? And you kept saying no. But then life in general is humans, animal. For Buddha, there's many realms of existence. And we're all floating between all of these realms of existence. And there are never more beings and never less beings. There can't be. But if we all get enlightened, then we stop being born as dogs and born as humans. We just become a pure consciousness then. Are we communicating now? Good, I'm very happy. That's the idea. Okay, yes. That's right. I know, but I kept repeating before to him, you mean just humans. And then if he said yes, then I would have given him the explanation. But he always kept saying no. So I couldn't go to the next point because he kept saying no. He didn't give me permission to go to the next point, you see. That's right. Of course, that's exactly right. What else, people, before we go home to bed? 8:57. One more question before we go. Nothing? Will that do for now? So what are our next days? Where's I think we're leaping ahead in purification. Maybe we have to explain how karma works first. Go on, then. Who? Then go on. Okay, well, we'll have to squeeze in karma then tomorrow or something. And then we can talk about self-forgiveness and purification the next day. That'll do. So every day there's something. Okay, good. All right. Well, I'll try to talk as fast as I can to get it all in. Okay. Thank you, people. So food for thought. If there's been anything useful at all, we take it in, you know, we can be a 1% Buddhist. You can be a 0.5% Buddhist. It's your call, okay? Take something that's useful. And the bottom line is to help you get less neurotic, less fearful, less jealous, depressed, more kind, more wise, more brave. Bottom line, okay? If anything you've heard helps you do that, wow, how fantastic. So we do dedicate, meaning all these thoughts. Okay, Buddha says, there's two things about the mind, the Buddha would say. One is, like Geshe Tashi in London, he said, it's like we're shooting movies all day, meaning as long as our mind is functioning, everything any sentient being merely sees, hears, smells, tastes, touches, thinks about, there's no qualitative thing here. It's simply, it's like everything is stored in our mind, which is why Buddha says we can have good memory, okay, which is clairvoyance. Everything's stored. Everything is stored here. Nothing goes astray. But the other way the mind works is more qualitative, which is positive, negative and positive karma, every second we're sowing seeds in the mind. So this evening, as many moments as there have been, we can say as many seeds we planted. So maybe nourish these seeds, with our efforts, this moment forward, so these seeds will manifest in our marvelous potential for our sake and the sake of others. Kewadi Nyududag Lama Sangye Drugyune Drowa Chikyang Malupa Te Sala Kupasho Jang Chob Sam Chog Rinpoche Ma Ke Panam Ke Guchig Ke Panyam Pa Me Payang Gong Ne Gong Du Pa Ba Sho. I got marketing, 2 advertisements, actually 3. I forgot to bring them tonight. There's a postcards that advertise this pilgrimage I've been doing since 2001, raises money for the prison project. We go to India and Nepal. It's such a special experience. I've got postcards. I'll bring them out. Well, I'll try and get them now before you all go home. And we'll have them out tomorrow. But the other one is, I've just come back from Nepal where we did this trek up to where Lama Zopa's from, up Bab Namche Bazaar. It's just 15 days. We started Kopan, trek for 4 days, do a 6-day retreat and come back again. And that raises money for Lama Zopa's place. We just finished that a couple of days ago. So those 2 advertisements. I haven't got postcards for the second one, but for the first. But the other one is a CD that I made. What can I say? It's called Devotion, and it was a friend in Australia, a woman I met years ago in Australia, was a composer. And she came to a retreat, and then she heard me sing the prayers, and she said she recognised a trained voice. Well, my mummy taught me music when I was a kid, right? She taught me singing. But then I became a hippie instead. She was so sad, I gave it up. Anyway, whatever. But the point is that we collaborated on this little project, did all these series of prayers. It's like basically a choir of Robina. We did we did a cappella, no instruments, like more like Gregorian. It's very interesting. These Tibetan tunes, they're very ancient. So I've got that out there too, and that'll raises money for my Bodhicitta Trust, but 30% goes for the shop here as well. So there's my advertisements, okay? I'll go get them now. See you all tomorrow, or some of you tomorrow, some next week, or some never again, I'm sorry. That's okay too. Thank you.